Have you been looking for a way to stay focused on your goals and grow your MSP? Accountability groups from RocketMSP can help. We offer weekly accountability sessions that meet online with a group of your peers. Your success begins with accountability. Go to www.rocketmsp.io to join your accountability group today. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the RocketMSP podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host. Today I'm joined by Colin Knox from Gradient MSP. Colin, how's it going, sir?
It's going awesome, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. So
Excellent.
Before I dive in and start asking you a bazillion questions about Gradient MSP, can we talk about you for a minute? Because you're not just some, for lack of a better term, nobody who just decided to start building some product nobody's ever heard of. You did something else that was kind of important. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah. So I've been in the managed services space for almost 20 years now. So I worked for a few MSPs. I started up my own MSP back in 2009. The tail end of the wonderful recession we all faced back then. Was fortunate. I grew that business over 5 years to $4 million in revenue. And as we were building that business, kind of had a significant pain point internally that led us to found and build a company called Passportal, where after selling the MSP off, really focused in on that business and brought to market the first privileged credential management solution for MSPs and IT service providers, and had a lot of fun building that. Got to meet a whole ton of amazing people and built that up to about 2,500 partners around the world that were using that and reselling password management as a service to their clients, and exited that by way of an acquisition to SolarWinds MSP, who's now Enable in 2019.
Man, that's a really cool path that you've taken. So started with an MSP, decided to build an awesome password platform that like a lot of MSPs use, got acquired by, a behemoth in the MSP game, right? And you were not still there when they decided they were going to spin off SolarWinds MSP to its own branch, or how is that its own company now? I never really know how that works.
It's completely separate. So when I came into SolarWinds with Passportal, we worked on integrating the business and integrating the tools and everything else. And then I stepped into a role where I headed up the community for SolarWinds and their, 25,000 partners that they had at the time globally. So stood up that organization or that function within the organization as the VP of community there. And kind of right around the time where the exploration project for the spin out to create Enable began, I was tired guy. We had a lot of stuff on the go for 10 years between building and exiting two businesses, doing a lot of stuff at SolarWinds there. And I needed a break. There's, kids were young, starting to get older, wanted to spend some time with the kids. So I stepped out in September last year. And it's been a lot of fun to watch them create the brand. I agreed that it was the right move to spin Enable out as its own, or the MSP business unit as its own thing. So it was awesome to watch that happen and see some really good friends sitting at the podium ringing the bell as they did that. And stock's performing well so far. And yeah, it's fun to watch.
That's great, man. Well, good for you with that. I'm sure some really nosy people would love to know how much you sold it for, and how many bazillions of dollars you have, but that's not relevant to what we're about to talk about. Okay.
Yeah.
So I won't make you answer those questions. So talk to me. You're here to talk about Gradient MSP.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, your website is gorgeous.
Thanks.
I do web design, so anytime I see a gorgeous website, I got to let people know. But it really starts to just talk about a lot of nonsense. I think you guys just probably made a whole bunch of stuff up and decided to put it up on a website.
Yeah.
Like, none of this is true. The average MSP has $260,000 of dirty data. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not giving my data a bath anytime soon. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So what is this, man?
So we had this plan when we started upgrading it, that how can we actually help MSPs grow? Right?
Mhm.
There's all these statistics in the industry that talk about, how big the market is, $250 billion industry. But when you look at it, 90% of this industry, of the 75,000 MSPs, are under 10 employees. They're less than 10 employees. And you look at probably the most popular or common revenue span is probably in that 500K to maybe $1.5 million in revenue. And there's an alleged 10,000 channel vendors and technology companies that sell solutions to empower and help these businesses grow or operate better, be more efficient, or have something armed to sell their clients. And everybody says that we're going to help you grow, we're going to make you bigger and everything. So we looked at it and we're like, if this has been the same statistics and the same demographic for the last decade, what could you actually do for an MSP that helps them grow truly their business, whether it's going from $500,000 to $1 million or $1 million to $3 million or forward on that way, or even just grow their profits. And so when we were trying to figure out how we could influence and impact this industry and make MSPs stronger and truly grow, we realized that business's growth and a business's success ultimately comes down to the decisions they make while they're running that business. It's not always about how much they're selling or how fast they can get clients. It's truly understanding the intrinsic decisions they're making day in and day out in their business, or the lack of decisions they're making because they just don't know and they don't have access to the data or the information that would help them make a good decision. So we had this grand plan to start building this thing that would allow people to help inform their decisions. And as we were digging into it, we realized that there was this kind of blocker in any tool we built that would need to connect to a PSA, the big source of truth for an MSP. And that was just riddled with bad data or old data or long lists or anything. So when you think about connecting up any tool to your PSA and you're looking at mapping your accounts, how many times is it like, oh, these aren't even clients. I don't even know who these people are, where this came from in my system. And so you're trying to apply all these filters in your integration so that you're only looking at accounts that are actually clients before you start mapping things and setting it up. So we figured, hey, we're going to build tools that integrate into the PSA to help an MSP. We might as well try to overcome that obstacle that's gonna arise. And that came down to, like, how can we clean up the data so that when we're connected, we're looking at good, clean, accurate data, and our product can be effective for MSPs. I'd love to say it was this amazing vision from the beginning that, like, MSPs need data management and we need to clean up everything and have them working. But as we started working with our early access partners and partner advisory council, they were plugging it in, and we essentially are just pulling in records and looking at it and trying to decide, is this record accurate? Is it relevant? And that could be all the way down to, we found an account in your PSA. This account's never had a service ticket associated. It's never had an opportunity or a quote associated with it. There's been no activity on it in a long period of time. Chances are it's irrelevant, but it may be misinforming your opportunity pipeline that you think you have available to you, or it just may be flooding and blocking the view of something else when a technician's trying to find the client that they're speaking to. So we built this data cleaning product and put it out there, and we weren't sure what it was going to. And interestingly, so there's this rule of data science, which sounds super mystical and stuff, but it's called the 110-100 rule. And what this means is every record that you have in any line of business application or business management tool you use starts with a cost of $1. So it kind of costs you $1 to create that record, get that record, and continue to have the storage of that piece of data. And that's easy and that's simple. Where that starts to grow is I'll skip over 10 right now, but there's this $100 per record, per dirty record principle, where if you think about having a bad record in your database or in the system that's informing your reporting, this $100 comes into play, where if you make a bad decision or a wrong decision because you looked at that record. If you spent time and effort or made an investment or took an action because a record was bad, that comes at a cost to you. So you think about redundant service tickets, right? All of a sudden now I've got 2 or 3 technicians that are running after the same thing, and that's burdening me. Does whatever you're paying your staff, 30, 40, 50 bucks an hour times 3 to solve one easy issue, right? If you have it where you've made a decision. So one of my things was in my MSP, we went to build a new office out, and we made a 6-figure investment and bet on building that office space out. But that bet was predicated on us looking at, this is our opportunity pipeline. This is how much business we think of that we're going to close. This is what our revenue will be, our receivables, everything else. And it was misinformed. Our close rates were misinformed that we based that guess on. Our opportunity pipeline was misinformed because there was companies in there that weren't even in business anymore, let alone give us a chance to sell to them. And so we were underwater. We almost crippled and cratered the entire company by that bet. Now that's a big example of it, but it could be anything to where you're marketing, who you're going after, the demographics, and there's all these things. It was actually the very first MSP that connected themselves up to our data cleaning in the early access program. And we were one-on-one going through it. And you'll see when we get to a little demo portion, but we separated out by the record types that we're evaluating. And we went to contacts, because contacts is always just the most dirty record type that we've got because of ebbs and flows in our clients, people that work for our clients, turnover, they come and go. And the highest confidence record that we said, this is for sure dirty, you got to get rid of this record. You recognize the name because it's the person at their largest client who they send the invoices to. It's their invoice contact. And right away, he was like, well, why does it say it's dirty? Well, they haven't had a ticket in 2 years. They haven't, all these types of metrics or data points on it. And then he realized, no wonder that they've been one of our worst paying clients that we have to chase and escalate to get paid, because we're automatically sending invoices to this person who hasn't even worked there in over a year. Right? So there's all these little things that now, what was the cost to his business of that one record, one person that's still listed as a contact at a client, because he was getting paid at like net 90 terms at his biggest client, because went out, they sent follow-ups to that person, other emails, everything else went nowhere, and it didn't go anywhere till they took it up the chain to the, main point of contact for the client or the CEO of the client to then be like, oh yeah, hey, no, we'll get this, send me a copy of the invoice, we'll get it paid right away type of thing. So,
but doesn't that also show that MSP wasn't doing a very good job at other things too?
Sure. But if you think about it, running an MSP is busy work. Right? And especially in the small shops, you're running around off your feet, still doing technical work, trying to consult to your clients, trying to do your QBRs, meet with people, maybe try to recruit, trying to put a name out there, having sales meetings, doing your billing, chasing invoicing, like all of these types of things that you're juggling balls all the time that are dropping and falling through the cracks. And, as a small business operator, you're just doing whatever you can to keep your head above water. There's the average MSP is probably only using 15 or 20% of what a PSA is capable of doing for them. That's not because they don't want to. That's because they have no time to sit and look at it and actually implement it until they reach a size where it's like, I'm hiring somebody and that's your full-time job is to manage that. So if we can show a little solution that helps clean up some of these things where you're not making mistakes by accident that way, and things are going to the right place, things are being handled, you're able to read a report that is actually showing you the state of what your business is doing and what's happening in the business, then you can make a better decision for what's next.
Okay. So couldn't we just argue that maybe they just need to work a little more then?
Yeah, but there's only 24 hours in a day, brother.
So I'm working 18 of them.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, but I guess I would say there are the ones that will put in the extra time and do it. And those are the ones we've had some 4 or 5 person MSPs come in and they've had like $1,000 in dirty data, right? Like kind of 10
Gotcha.
records,
Okay.
right? And some of them do it. But I would challenge and say most people in the space or watching your show aren't looking to work 18, 20 hours a day. In fact, they probably got in business so they could have more available time for them. So they don't want to be doing these things after hours. They want to have a reasonable, manageable schedule, but be as effective in that schedule as possible.
Okay. So then let's talk about the different types of dirty data. Okay, so we've got contacts who no longer work for a company, and that's why you're not getting paid because Susie isn't in accounting anymore.
Yeah.
But there's other data in a PSA. Contracts, service types, ticket types, your own employees have data. So talk to me about the other types of data that and like examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll start with accounts is easy. It's, if you've got accounts, you could have vendors, you could have customers, you could have prospects, you could have whatever under accounts. And whether that's informing your opportunity pipeline, whether that's informing who you're chasing after to get business, whether that's trying to figure out who your actual clients are, where everything is. I mean, that's just one of these things that you need to look at and stay on top of, but arguably probably has a lower impact on you. Contacts we've covered, and even just the sheer number of contacts. If you think about it, if you've got a bunch of dirty contacts that don't work at your clients anymore, yet you look in your PSA and you pull a report, how many contacts do we have? And now you're trying to decide, okay, I'm going to offer a new service. So let's say it's dark web monitoring. You're going to go and do your own projection and forecast of how much business you can make or how much revenue or profit you can have based off of your margin by selling to that number of contacts. Well, that was just completely misinformed. And maybe you got a high number and you're like, this is awesome. And now I'm going to invest all this money behind it to get all of those people on it. But 25% of them don't even work at your clients anymore. So now you've got a big miss there. You step into contracts, same thing. You spend a lot of time, or somebody spends a lot of time balancing the books of what you think you should be making, what you're invoicing, and then what's actually coming in. There's, again, back to the thing that as a small business operator and an MSP business owner, you're doing so many things. There's countless contracts that sit in your PSA that are expired, that are active but uninvoiced, that are inaccurate and just things not happening on them, or they're just not managed to a point of what's actually included and what's not included. And so same thing, you could have expired contracts that you should be invoicing and now you're not invoicing them. Even though, QuickBooks says you've got this coming in, your invoices show that you've got this much coming in, but that you should have way more because you count all your clients, you count all the contracts, but you're not invoicing them because they're not active contracts. So we look at that and that's leaving big money on the table at times. You have your service items, like you said, or ticket type things. So that one might seem like big deal. We've got a ton of ticket types. Well, it can be a big deal because as you're growing and as you're taking on more tickets and you have more staff that are doing multiple and more tickets every day, how long do you want them clicking and scrolling through a long list of ticket types to just be able to document the ticket and get working? And beyond that, if you're trying to have an idea as to where your technician's time is going on, just a technician basis or on a per client basis, so you can actually tell your client what's working and what's not working for them. If you've got multiple similar ticket types, all of a sudden now, because of what one wording or spelling means to one technician versus another, you might have something that's actually taking up 30% of your time, but now it's been split into a few, maybe 5% 4 times. And that's not a big enough sliver or chunk on your donut chart to understand, holy smokes, we're spending a lot of time training employees at that client on how to use Microsoft Office. We should just hold a training class there. But you don't know that because it's too similar and it's disparate. So it obfuscates your report. You mentioned your own employees. There's obviously some security implications and stuff, but same thing. When you're offboarding, how many MSPs under 10 employees have an actual offboarding procedure where they're checking off a checklist that says, I've disabled this account, I've disabled that account, I've done this, whatever. Well, sometimes it's really easy because you got MFA and all you do is disable your token, right? Well, now all of a sudden you have 3 former employees who still have active seats and user accounts in your PSA. You're paying whatever you're paying, $55, $100 a month for each of those. And in a small business, to be able to recoup $150 or $200 a month or more is huge, because you could put that in another tool that drives productivity, that could go into some digital ads, whatever it is. So these are all the kind of some of those places where you can just have bad data that's driving bad decisions, keeping money out of your pocket, or putting your business at risk.
All right. So it's starting to make sense. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Now, we started to talk about that 110-100 rule.
Yeah.
Can you just go over that one again?
Yeah, sure. So the cost to have any record in your business over the life of your business and the life of that record is $1. And that's having a clean, good record. Mm-hmm. And that's just a natural thing. Then the $10 comes in, where that's a cost to discover that a record is dirty and then take the actions to clean or correct that record. So you've come along, you've noticed something, maybe you didn't make a bad decision on it, but you just noticed that record because you were reading a report, looking at a list, and you're like, yeah, that's just not right. Okay, so now I have to take time to stop what I'm doing, hop on that, edit it, disable it, see what else it's related to. If that was a contact and it was a main point of contact, now I need to update the account in the PSA and kind of go on. But that's, takes you 10 minutes or $10 in time or effort or whatever else to distract. Essentially a distraction and a time cost, right? And then that $100 comes in as it's a dirty record.
I think I know this one. So the $100 is the record is dirty. I haven't cleaned it. And now this is how much money I'm throwing away on resources or services or whatever else for something that's inaccurate. Is that
absolutely wasted time, money, or effort, or some combination of the 3?
Okay. So I'm going to pick on him only because I love him so much. Brian Weiss.
Yes.
CEO, iTech Solutions. He is right. He's on your homepage, man. You've got a testimonial right here from him. And he said, having clean data in my PSA is critical to avoid wasted time and money dealing with out-of-date or dirty records. Grading's PSA dating cleaning solution will ensure records stay clean and will lower my life cycle record cost of management from $100 down to $1 per record. So he basically just took your 110-100 rule and butchered it for a testimonial. Is that...
It is, but if you talk to Brian, and the next time you talk to Brian, him in particular, so there's a lot of MSPs or business owners that never heard of this 110-100 rule. And when we first started talking about it, he started researching it a lot more and digging in deeper and reading it and then looking at what his reports were out of Gradient. And he runs his entire business based off that rule now. It's insane because it is so true. When you're trying to build and grow your business, every dollar counts. Whether it's $1 you're spending, $1 you're making, $1 you could have made, or $1 that went to effort, right? So yeah, it's kind of pivotal to how he runs his company. It's his little ethos now. But yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about what kind of mysterious magic wizardry you've got going on here. Is this, do you have like a magic wand? Is this like a Harry Potter movie where you magically clean our data? How does it work?
Almost. Yeah. So it's really, it's not as intelligent as it sounds, but essentially if you look at it, this is all stuff you could do manually, right? So if you wanted to take the time and you wanted to clean this up, and we've got a checklist you could download off our website of how to go about it yourself. But you can go in, you can do a search and show your entire list of every one of these different record types. And you can click into each of them, and then you can look at recent activity and different attachments and everything else, and take the time to look at, review, and discern each record individually if it's good or bad. Make a decision on that, and then either move forward because it's good and it's clean, or then I need to clean this now. So it's either edit it, update it, disable it, whatever it's going to be, and then on to the next record. What we've done is expedited that whole process, right? Thanks to the wonderful world of computing and algorithms and microprocessing, we're able to ingest all this data and in a matter of seconds and minutes in cases for large data sets, be able to look at and understand all the relationships, all the recent activity, everything else, and identify for you in a high, medium, and low confidence rating what records seem to be less relevant for your business and with what's been happening over the past few years in your company. We can then present that to you with the reasons and our confidence rating. And then if you look at it and it's an anomaly, which is, yeah, you know what, I haven't done anything with them, but this is a great reminder. I should actually follow up with them, or I should do something about this. Awesome. And you can choose to ignore it, and Gradient's not going to look at that and recommend it to you anymore. Or you can click clean, and then, yeah, we're going to go off and we'll, adjust the record in the PSA, mark it as inactive, or make sure it's not misinforming any of the reports or exports or reviews that you're doing, and get rid of it for you. Not deleting anything. And we log everything that happens. So if you go and you're like, oh, shoot, that was wrong, you can undo anything you do. But we're essentially fast tracking you to identify exactly what seems to be irrelevant or old or dirty, and then giving you a one-click thing to be able to clean it up.
All right.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's not much more we could say about how it works other than we should see how it works. So if you want to, down on the bottom, there's a little share button, and you can share a window. If it doesn't open any pop-ups or anything, you can just share that one window. So while you do that, I'm going to rapid fire off some, I'll call them harder questions. With you having access to our PSA, that starts to get a little scary because security.
Yep.
So how do I say this nicely? Was your development team smart enough to figure out which permissions we actually have to give you on the API, or do you tell us we have to check off all the boxes?
So right now, the way that it works is we have you check off all the boxes. And now I'll preface that to say it's not what we wanted, but the way that most APIs for the PSAs are structured, and the fact that we're essentially modifying records across all of the modules, we require that read and write access to every one of those modules, whether it's, disabling PSA users that are stale and dormant, whether that's on your accounts, your contracts, right? So we need into the contracts module, we need into the services module, the ticketing module. So it is unfortunate, and we've talked to a few of the PSA companies to say, hey, can you actually have a tone step down for us to be able to use these API routes? But that's not the case right now for this solution anyways. We do have other modules and products coming out from Gradient, which we're able to strip it down to where it's at. Now, what I will say about that is, there's a security concern and whatnot. We're very open about what we're doing, about what we're collecting, about what we will do with any of that data. And then we've taken the steps that full security by design and build architecture. So coming out of a cybersecurity company and tech company before, we've implemented a lot of the same protocols, policies, and technologies to make sure that in our system, all that data is encrypted in transit and at rest. We're SOC 2 Type 1 certified right now. We're at the tail end of our Type 2 audit period. So we've got that third-party auditing validation across security and privacy in particular for making sure that we've put and we have in effective operation the right security protocols and policies and procedures to protect that data.
And I get that, and that's cool. I think the part that worries me is that, you great guy, great company, did security stuff in the past. I see you're SOC 2 compliant, certified, one of the two.
Yeah.
So obviously I know you guys are security focused. Okay.
Yeah.
But stuff happens. Okay. So there's an API key for
Yep.
our information in your system.
Yeah.
Is that API key encrypted, hashed, whatever?
Yeah,
Okay.
completely.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's it. Every bit of data we have is encrypted at rest and in transit at all times.
And what access do you, your team, your developers, your mom, whoever, I don't care, have to my raw data?
Yeah, so when it comes to the raw data, so there's a few bits to how we're doing things and some of our end goal to help MSPs make better decisions. So when it comes to the raw data, I mean, our DevOps team is the only people that have access to that. And that's all under lock and key with limited access rights based on the role, multi-factor authentication, rotated credentials, certificates, VPN, like everything. So at this point in time, you're talking like 2 people that have direct access to that, who have gone through their own background checks and everything else and follow the rest of the protocols around security and privacy and data protection. That's it. Could I ask somebody to get access? Yeah, I can't. And honestly, I don't even have the tools to get in there and look at that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it comes to that raw access, yeah, we also only collect the information that we need to do what we do. We're not pulling in, like on ticketing, we're not pulling in bodies of what's written in a ticket. We're not pulling in time entries, anything like that. We're essentially pulling in kind of what was the ticket type, what client was it for, what tech was assigned to it, what contact is assigned to it, maybe the device or configuration that was attached to it, and other meta bits of information around it, none of the other details.
Okay. And if I've got clients that are, HIPAA compliant, technically you don't really have access to any patient records.
Yeah. So we don't have any access to any EFI and even very limited PII within your own business as an MSP. Yeah. So with our SOC 2 Type 2, we've got all the policies and procedures around that stuff. We are working, once we wrap up our Type 2 here at the end of the month, we're stepping into both GDPR and HIPAA compliance seals or certifications, and then into ISO 27001 as well.
Now, I feel like this is almost a dumb question. The HIPAA compliance seal, is that just so you can check off a box? Like if somebody says, hey, are you going to sign a BAA for me? You'd be like, yeah, sure. Here you go. Because it's like, we don't touch any patient health information. So we don't.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to, right? And it all comes down to a mitigation of risk and confidence for our partners. We understand and we know we're not collecting any EFI. We have very little PII, but it's important to the MSPs. So because it's important to them, it's important to us. So we need to make sure that we have the policies and procedures. Now, when it comes to a lot of compliancy and regulatory compliance certifications and audits, you essentially have to prove that things are in effective operation. And what that means is they say, if you've got this policy or procedure, we're going to do a spot check to a time in the past, generally year, it's within the audit period, to make sure that that's exactly what happened. Now, when it comes to PII or EFI, that would mean that we'd have to prove at some point that somebody asked to be forgotten and that we had to erase or scrub personally identifiable information. But we don't really capture personally identifiable information. So it's hard for us to prove that we got that request and that we took out the action to do it, even though we have a policy around it. Same thing, right? Prove that you've gone through and restricted access to EFI. Oh, we can't because we don't have any access to EFI. So at some point, some of those are just you're certified. You do have a policy that if this comes into play, you can do something about it, but you can't prove that you've actually had to enforce or use that policy.
Okay. And data sovereignty, I know it might only be just like metadata type stuff, but if I say all my data has to stay within the United States.
Yeah, that's where everything is right now. Yeah.
Okay. And if somebody said I need everything to be in Europe, you're working on that as well.
So we will, if it comes up. When it comes to encryption and of data at rest, all that you actually have to do is have the encryption or decryption key, the hash outside of that region, right? To abide by it. So the request hasn't come up yet. We'll deal with it and solve it as it comes up or becomes necessary. But yeah.
And do you have like 2FA or SSO or anything for people that want to sign into your dashboard?
Yeah. So we ran a password company before. We didn't want any passwords with this product. We didn't want to deal with kind of credential management by any means. So we're only SSO. So you sign in with Microsoft, sign in with Google, or you use a magic link. And our anticipation is you have MFA on your main, identity provider or email provider. So we can piggyback on that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And even the magic link is just nice because passwords suck.
Yeah,
so
they absolutely do. And it's a one-time use. Yeah.
And that would probably be like the biggest customer service suck is, I forgot my password.
Absolutely, right? So that's it. All you need is access to your email, and that's done. Some people haven't understood Magic Link because it hasn't been overly popular in the MSP space before. So some people thought that this is a living link, and if somebody breaches their email, they could click that and get into our system and do whatever. No, it's one-time use, and that token expires if it's not used as well. So it's all secure and safe to use.
All right, let's hop into a demo. I see you've shared your screen. Is this safe to put up?
I think so, yeah. Should be, as long as it's the right screen. There we go. It is the right screen.
It's the right screen. All right.
Yeah, so like I just said, actually, when you log in, you there's nowhere to enter a username and password. So you either choose Microsoft for your M365, choose your Google, whether your personal Google account or if you're on a Google Workspace, or your Magic Link. So I'm on M365, so it's going to go ahead, redirect me. I already have an active session. Otherwise, it would prompt me for everything in my MFA. When you come into the product, so I'm not going to go through the whole intake. The intake is super easy, though, to plug in your API key and kind of kick it off. So this is, this one in particular, I believe we're connected into an Autotask instance. And so what it's done, it's already synced in the data, it's done its analysis, and you come into it. First thing is this big kind of gradient circle wheel here. That's your data health score. So it's a number out of 1,000 and essentially gives you an indication as to what percentage of your data is clean versus what's dirty. So in this case, we've got a 322, which means that 67.8% of my data in this database is actually is dirty.
How what? So this is out of 1,000?
Just out of 1,000, yeah. So only 32%. Yeah, so only 32% is clean. So you start to wonder, okay, so how does that come together, right? Well, we found out of all of your records, so there's not a ton of records in this data tenant or instance of Autotask, but 103 of them are dirty records. And since the last sync, we found 6 more. Because the one thing to remember too with dirty data is that a record that's clean today might not be clean 3 months from now, because there's been no tickets assigned, there's been no activity, nothing's happened there. So it's a constant revolving door of data management.
And just to clarify, when you say dirty, it simply means we don't know if it's still a good record.
Right.
It's a question mark, it's definitely bad.
Exactly.
It's just not definitely good.
Exactly. Yep. And then we let the MSP decide what they want to do about it. So again, back to that 110-100 rule, it shows us that, okay, 103, you can do the math, times 100, that's $10,300 in dirty data costs. So on our homepage, where we say that the average MSP is $260,000 in dirty data costs, it's because they have 2,600 dirty records sitting in their PSA that they should clean up. That's misguiding.
That is a lot of dirty records.
It is a lot of dirty records. Then we track for you how many records you've cleaned using Gradient and how much that has saved you over time. When we say, hey, there's 103 recommendations for you to review, we break those down across the different record types that we've got. So accounts, contacts, contracts, services, That's our term for it. Some PSAs call it services. Some PSAs call it products or product lines. Same thing. Then you have your issue types or your ticket types, and then your PSA users. So you can see at any given point how many recommendations on each, how clean. So services is much cleaner on average than, contacts is, or even contracts. Issue types is really bad here. And we give a simple, green, yellow, red type thing.
And while I would love to just hit the button that says start cleaning, can we hit review on one of these items?
Yeah, so it takes you the same place, right? So we say right here, don't worry, we'll step you through it. It's not automated that way. So start cleaning essentially takes you the same place. If we hit review on any of them, it'll just take us to that record type and the cleaning recommendations. So if we go into contacts here, right, we've got 26. We generally, and I'll go into accounts, but they're broken up between high, medium, and low. So you'll have your various things. And if there's no high confidence recommendations, we just won't show that. And so you go into contracts, you can see these all, again, we kind of break it up into columns. You can expand that section to come through and see all of the high confidence contacts that it would say. And again, that slips through contracts, issue types, your services, or your PSA users as well.
And so an issue type is simply saying, hey, we created 97 issue types for our tickets, and 50 of them have never been used.
Exactly. Yeah. So if I go to issue types here, we just have sample names in here or whatever. And so if I come in, essentially that's as simple as it goes. It's never been used on a ticket. So why have it? Right. And that's going back 2 years. Now you might say, okay, auditing, it's never had a ticket. No, I just created that last month or last week. So that's where okay, this is fine. And you could choose to go and ignore that record. And now it's gone from the list. You could undo it if you misclicked and it would pop back in there.
Now, what happens if you clean out an issue type? Is it just in auto task? I think you can just like deactivate or disable something.
And that's exactly what happens, right? So I won't click clean here. Yeah, well, sure. So if I click clean, it just says here, this coding record, upon confirming, it'll be disabled in your PSA.
Got it.
So then I would go through and confirm and it would clean that one.
Now, is there let's just clean them all?
So we don't have just go nuts, but what we do have multi-select, just because you are making actions and everything's undoable, and I'll show that. But let's say, we wanted to go and select, these 4 records that we wanted to clean. But before I'll do that, actually, I'll just show quickly. So when you're looking at this, you can always click see more, and it tells you, what type of contact it is, if it's available, what the ID of the record is in your PSA, if you want to search it up yourself, when it was created, why we're saying this stuff and what should be done. Now, you can also just see right here some of that, why we've determined
there's a ticket icon, there's a dollar bill.
Yeah. So it's never had an opportunity. Yeah. Right. And same thing on accounts. You can see it's never had an opportunity, never a ticket. If you go on contracts, you can see there's never been a ticket on that contract and it's never had activity. There's another one that would be, it's never even been invoiced. There's never been an invoice created from that contract. So
Able Manufacturing, they've got to be the worst customer ever, because I know so many MSPs that have started doing business with them and they just never got paid.
Just not paid, right? And so we can go through here and let's say we select all 4 and we want to clean them. So we can come up, say we want to confirm and clean these ones, and it's going to go, right? And then we're going to give you a little pat on the back. So you just saved yourself $400 in dirty data costs. If you want to undo it right away, because you're just like, oh crap, no, I thought I only selected 6. You can go and undo it right here and it'll undo that. Or you can close this. So it's really simple how it works. If you wanted to go and kind of see what's happened, I mean, we've got your full activity log. So I can come in here now and see everything that's been done over the last week here. And again, I can choose what dates I want to go to. Maybe I only want to see what's happened today. And wow, look at that. Here's the 4 that I just did, plus this record that I chose to ignore when we were looking at issue types. So I could go one by one and re-include this. Say, yes, that's going to go back or revert the change. Or again, I can go ahead and multi-select all of these things that I want to undo and undo them. And I confirm it. And now when I go back into my recommendations for my contacts, those 4 people are back in the list now. So it's all real. It's real time writing and removing from the PSA or putting things back. So it gives you all that flexibility there. So the activity log is expansive. Also lets you know who did what, when, even what was the confidence rating on that record, what was the action that was done. Even the undos are logged and able to be reverted and reclaimed, right? In PSA configuration, we want you to know everything that's going on, what's happening with your integration. So we'll tell you when it was first connected up and when it was first synced, when the last sync happened, when the next scheduled sync is to occur, what happened in the last sync, which is we just do monthly syncs really, unless you push an on-demand one. How many new accounts came in, contracts, services, users, all of that. What are the total records that we're syncing now? Again, we can give you all the information. This is everything we're collecting. Select ticket data. That seems weird. Well, let's click a question mark and understand what we're collecting and what's going on there, right? We don't even show you what the password is or your auth key once it's set up, because we don't want somebody else to come in and see that shouldn't have access to that, right? It's gone. It's encrypted. Yeah. It's used only when needed. Now I could change it and test it. And we don't do a system where you set it up and then 2 weeks later you find out that your integration's not working because it didn't have the right access. The second that you set this in here, and actually let me see, give me a second in a different thing. I'll see if I can find the actual API key here. So I'll copy it. There. And come back here. So if I go in here, does this show? Okay, good. So it does blank it out, just making sure. So I go in there and I click save and test, and it tests against all the modules right away and tells me these are all good. Perfect. Right? And so we've got everything else. You could run it in on-demand sync. It's going to rerun one now because it thinks I just changed the API stuff. If you've ignored records, so I'll go back in here and just ignore, actually I'll just select a whole bunch of them and ignore them. So now when I go to my PSA configuration, so there's no ignored records across accounts, but in contacts, now I've got these records. Of course, this is going to be funky. Maybe I'm trying to do it too fast. It says that they're there. I don't know why it's not showing, but it would show the ignored records, and then you could undo those to re-include them. Of course, you could also go into here and select the ones that you just ignored and undo that, and they'll be re-available.
All right. So basically what I'm seeing here, Colin, is just a really nice way to clean up your PSA.
Yeah, it's, super simple. We just call it Tidy. It's the product name, but it's super simple, easy to use. You can self-sign up. It's completely free. Like, we're not charging anything. What? Yeah, we charge nothing.
Why? Because you know what they say, if you're not paying, what are you saying? If you're not the customer, you're the product?
Yeah, exactly. Or if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, right? Either way.
So are we the product? Is that why you're doing this?
We'll say yes and no to an extent with asterisks. So on one hand, like I mentioned earlier in the show here, we needed to have cleaner data to be able to deliver future solutions and products so that we knew there would be no issues integrating into the PSA, mapping things up and doing it. So this was in our benefit to be able to help MSPs clean it up. So that's the first part. We will be releasing products that will still have freemium aspects to it, but will have paid levels and paid features, we'll call it, to it. And that starts in November. So you don't worry, we will let you pay us for something in the future. Now, I promise we will let you give us your credit card number.
All right.
Now, the reason for the asterisks on you are the product is multifaceted. So we want to help MSPs make better decisions, and we want to help the whole world better understand the managed services industry. And the only way we can do that is with data. So we recognize as doing some of this stuff, it is essentially collecting data. Now, we scrub and anonymize all the data that comes into the system so that it's not able to be attributed back to a named entity. And what we're going to be able to do with that, one is your data becomes a product for your own consumption in the future. So if you look at a world, that we would like to see of what we'd call data equality, it's where, by Steve participating in this program and connecting up and essentially contributing your data that gets scrubbed and anonymized, you can get back thousands fold for what you've contributed. Because now we can assemble that and collect that against the same anonymized type of data set of thousands or tens of thousands of your peers. Now imagine the power that that can provide you as a participant of this when it comes to collective intelligence, being able to tell you what gaps you have truly in your service offering compared to the rest of the industry or the rest of the MSPs in your state, right? Understanding, am I charging the right amount? How many of you, like, raise your hand? I know I did it, like, frequently, called all the competitors in my city to say, hey, what do you guys charge per user? What do you get? How do you guys charge? What are your prices? We can actually tell you, not necessarily to your city, because I think that starts to segment a little bit too far. But we could tell you, if you're in Atlanta, we can tell you what the average rates are across every service type in Georgia, right? Knowing what people charge on average with the high and low bookends for managed services, for dark web monitoring, for password management, for email security, backup, whatever it is. You can then start to understand if you're leaving money on the table or if maybe you're not closing deals because you're way overpriced, right? Being able to understand those things.
So you said we're participating, we're providing anonymized data. So let's talk about that because, there's so many things are requiring anonymized data anymore. I feel like I sneeze and I just gave something to somebody, right? And I don't mean COVID. So when you say anonymized data, so my thought would be, okay, so we've got tidy, so that means they are going to pay attention to how many total contacts I had, how many are dirty, how many are clean. But you're probably going know that further into that.
Yeah, so we would know that on average, but what I would say is we would be able to know, what's the best way for me to put this? So we would know, so here's a great thing. We've got all these companies that launch products, just like Gradient did. Here's a product for an MSP to use, right? Or here's a product for an MSP to sell. What vendors that enter the market often see on Reddit is, what the heck, these guys clearly don't understand us. They clearly don't get this market, this industry. They don't know who we are, what we are, right? With even the data we collect through Tidy and we can scrub and anonymize, we can start to be able to say, hey, MSPs on average are this many employees, right? They have this many employees in their business. They on average have this many clients, right? And they on average have this many endpoints. We can start to say this many MSPs or this percentage of MSPs sell solutions in this product category, email security. And they can start to understand where opportunity is. We can start to understand both for vendors to be more informed on how they're going after the market to better outfit their partners, right? They could start to understand that health-focused, health vertical clients in the sub 100 employee segment are consuming dark web monitoring and password management together. Well, that's really neat. How about we start to create resources focused on the health vertical on these two products that our partners are trying to sell and help them create more targeted, successful campaigns with our big marketing resources that we can put together, right? They can better help you go better to market to your clients with these solutions to be more effective in selling them instead of saying, hey, here you go. Here's dark web monitoring and password management tool. Good luck. Go nuts. And you go, well, which of my clients are going to be most interested in this? What should I charge for this? How do I sell this, right? We can advise everybody automatically through the data that tells us that stuff. And we can start to tell industry averages and put out even industry reports that truly speak to the actual performance of the industry. You don't have to have that thing anymore where, XYZ report tells you how all the best in class are performing, how much profit they're making, how well they're doing, how they're charging $500 per user per month. You don't need that, pardon the term, you don't need that kick in the nuts if you're a 2, 3, 5 person shop. What you need to know is how are other 2, 3, 5-person shops performing, right? How fast are they growing? How profitable are they? What are they charging? What are they offering? And even better yet, how about the $3 to $5 million shops? What are they offering that I'm not? What are they doing differently that got them from this 1 to 3 to that 3 to 5? Those are the bits of information we're looking to collect so that we can pass that back to you and truly influence growth. Whatever growth means to you as an MSP, is that revenue? Is that profit? Is that just, more personal time? We can find what's happening in all of your peers' businesses and in your geographic region. Because that was the other thing. I'm out of Canada, if you can't tell by how funny I talk. We used to read all these reports.
It's hilarious.
I didn't say a boot yet. Or a. I meant to say a. But
no, you've done very well, actually.
Right? Is I would be reading reports and watching things, and it would tell me all about how things are happening across the US. Well, even in the US, I'm sorry, but the economy and how it's performing in Houston is vastly different from how it is in Tampa Bay, right? Real estate costs differ by millions, right? Of course, people are going to be willing to pay different amounts for different services. So why are we getting reports showing how fast an industry is growing as a nation when that means nothing to somebody that's in Boca Raton compared to what's happening in LA? That doesn't make sense, right? And the reason that is because this data has never been available before. It's either been siloed or just not had, or it's all on surveys. And we've all filled out those surveys from our vendor partners that even ask us, what service areas, what services do you deliver to your clients? And you don't want to seem inaccurate. So you check off every single box in there. Just in case they associate me to this thing, I don't want to look like I'm not delivering something or there's a gap. But what that does is misinforms the rest of the industry. So if we're able to pull this from the source of truth that everybody uses to run their business and anonymize it, we can help fuel and feed that back to the industry for the greater good of the industry, to truly level it up, help the vendors better understand their partners and what the industry is, and hopefully minimize, I won't say get rid of, but minimize the amount of times that an MSP looks at something and says, you guys just don't get it. You don't get us. That's got to stop, because pretty soon MSPs are going to stop looking at solutions and solutions that could be amazing for their businesses. So if we can mitigate that from happening, that's a huge win. If we can help an MSP stop or not take a step that's proved to be unsuccessful for other MSPs who have tried, then we need to try and do that, right? If there was a certain service offering that came out, I don't know, let's just call it some sort of insurance. And this isn't a real world thing, but let's say they were delivering some kind of insurance solution. Wouldn't you want to know if the early adopting MSPs were seeing an average of like a 13-month churn rate on that, where they only got 1 year's worth of revenue and all the clients canceled and churned out because they just didn't see the ongoing value of it? I sure would, because then I wouldn't put all the time, money, and effort into trying to launch that same service, because I heard from the vendor that we have 10,000 partners that are doing this. We've grown 1,000% in the last year. That's great. Maybe what's next year's numbers look like, right? Avoid that risk to your business. Avoid that misstep. Instead, look at, oh, shoot, this is one that's grown in massive adoption across my MSP peers. It's high in profitability. It's got a high retention rate. Now that's where something I can go in and be sure of what it's going to do for my business.
Okay. I like it. I'll allow it.
Yes.
Seal of approval.
Awesome.
All right. So the next product to come out for Gradient.
Yeah. So the next product to come out is Billable, is what we're calling it. So it's coming out in the middle of November. You'll see us announce a one-day virtual event to educate and launch that product to the market. But yeah, as we've looked at a whole bunch of things and talked to a whole bunch of partners about, again, this great disconnect between channel vendors and MSPs, there's been this, one piece that I don't know as though it's overlooked, but it's kind of just been tolerated for so long, which is being able to take my entire resale stack and everything I'm delivering to my clients and have that automatically update to my PSA so that I know I'm charging for the right amount of seats the right amount of gigabytes or terabytes of data backed up, the right amount of sites managed, whatever it is, automatically, so that when I go into my wonderful PSA at the end of the month, and I'm ready to bill for my proactive services next month, I can select all and click invoice and not have to spend that 10, 20, 30 hours of just painstaking hell of a million tabs across all my vendor portals, trying to figure out who's buying what, how much they're using, what's changed over the last month, and try and do all of that. So we're trying to just better connect those systems so that as an MSP, you are always getting paid for what you're delivering to your clients. You're not leaving money on the table. You're not forgetting about things. And best of all, you don't have to do that in that extra time after hours when you could be catching, the latest episode of Billions that just launched, or hanging out with your kids or your spouse, or doing whatever it is that you want to do instead of doing that stuff. So that's the next thing that we've got coming out, is to attach all those systems and automate that process for MSPs.
Well, Colin, when you guys are ready to announce that, I would love to have you back on and have you show that off as well. I love that you are confident enough to wear a bright pink shirt, but I love that you got this whole flamingo thing going. So I got to ask the hardest question of the day. What's with the flamingo?
Yeah, we get it a lot. So we, like a lot of companies, we wanted to have some sort of mascot, something that people could rally around and relate to, and something that stood out. There are so many, we'll say, animals that have been used in our space already. I mean, the owl has been used countless times. Somebody used the fox. You had like the polar bear, right? All of these different animals. And so then we started to think about, well, what would resonate, and what do we want to represent? And two things that we really want to represent as a company is balance in the industry, and just balance overall, balance in your business, your work-life balance, everything else. And then the other is community, right? Is we see this industry as such an amazing community, and we've been so fortunate to be a part of it for the length of time that we have, and had the support and seen the benefit of it. And so when you Google like animals that represent balance and community, that's flamingos. You almost never see a single flamingo by itself. They're always together in their groups. And with balance, I mean, what better thing? It's at its most relaxing, comfortable position when it's up on one leg. So that's what we went with, was the flamingo. And hey, they're pink, they're bright, they're flamboyant and stand out, and they're fun. So that's what we went with, was the flamingo.
Well, I like that. If I had to associate with an animal, I would probably go with the ostrich, just so I could stick my head in the sand.
Yeah.
And avoid all this dirty data.
That. We actually thought about the ostrich, because I think, again, with the misunderstanding of this entire industry and what's going on, there's a lot of people on every part of the ecosystem that have their head in the sand. But that to us seemed too negative of an approach, and it's just a reality of where we're at with things. And it's not because people don't want to know, it's just because it's never been able to get known. So yeah, we wanted to go fun and fabulous and positive, and that's the way we went.
Well, good. So seriously, thank you so much for being on here. Can you tell I'm fighting through what may or may not be COVID, because I don't have results yet?
I'm so glad we're not sharing a mic stand here today.
Right? That's why I love doing these remote, man.
Yeah.
But seriously, like, I hope I was able to ask you the right questions. I think I was able to pay attention to most of the words that came out of your mouth. And now's a good time to stop before I start sweating profusely.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. I really appreciate you having us on, and we're not shy from any question, right? We're really bullish about what we're doing. We see the massive opportunity for the industry of what we're pushing towards, and we've got nothing to hide. I mean, we live by full transparency, and we truly are trying to champion a greater movement and greater growth for the industry. So
I really respect that, Colin. So thanks so much. Seriously, I look forward to having you back on sometime.
Yeah, I look forward to being here. Thanks again, Steve.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. You all have yourselves a great day, and I will catch you all at the next episode. Have you been looking for a way to stay focused on your goals and grow your MSP? Accountability groups from RocketMSP can help. We offer weekly accountability sessions that meet online with a group of your peers. Your success begins with accountability. Go to www.rocketmsp.io to join your accountability group today.